Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking back, way back, to the French Revolution, 1789, liberty, equality, fraternity, all that. But our mission isn't just a history lesson. We want to see if there are, surprising parallels between France back then and America right now. Not to predict anything, but maybe to understand things a bit better.
Exactly. It's about using that historical lens to look at the kind of foundational stresses we might see in, well, any modern democratic system, really. And these echoes, they can tell us a lot about social unrest, maybe prompt some thinking about where society's headed.
Okay, let's get into it. Pre-revolutionary France, the Ancien Regime, you described it as a tinderbox. What made it so explosive?
Well, first off, you had this incredibly rigid social structure. The three estates.
Right.
Clergy, nobility, that's less than 2% of everyone. They got out of most direct taxes, like the main land tax, the taille.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the other 98%, the third estate, that's everyone from peasants right up to the educated middle class. The bourgeoisie, they carried almost the entire load, plus feudal dues on top. And that bourgeoisie, they were educated, increasingly wealthy, but had basically zero political say. That bred resentment, deep resentment.
So a fundamentally unfair system. And financially, I gather it was, well, a complete mess.
Oh, absolutely. France was drowning in debt.
Yeah.
By 1788, something like half the state's income was just paying interest on loans.
Half?
Yep. Fueled by expensive wars, like the one against Britain fought partly in America. Then had crop failures, food shortages, the price of bread, the absolute staple food, just skyrocketed. People were starving and they were angry. We're talking real desperation.
Okay, so you've got absolute power at the top, no real representation for most people, huge economic hardship, and then these new ideas start swirling around. How did the Enlightenment fit in?
That was crucial. Philosophers were talking about liberty, equality, government by consent, not divine right. It directly attacked the foundations of the old order.
And they had a recent example.
Exactly. The American Revolution had just happened. It showed these ideas weren't just theories. You could actually build a country on them. It was hugely inspiring.
So the pressure's building. What were the actual sparks, the triggers?
Well, the king calling the Estates General the big assembly, that became a flashpoint. The argument was all about how to vote by estate, where the top two could outvote the third, or by head.
Which would favor the third estate.
Right. They got fed up, declared themselves a national assembly, basically claiming sovereignty. Then you have the storming of the Bastille, July 14th, hugely symbolic popular uprising. And later, the Women's March on Versailles. Driven by hunger, by the bread prices again, they actually forced the king and queen to move back to Paris. A massive shift in power, away from the monarchy and towards the people.
Incredible. Okay, let's pivot. Fast forward to today, contemporary America. Where do you see those echoes, those parallels?
Well, you certainly see echoes in economic disparity. Look at the numbers from, say, the late 70s to now. Wages for the top 1% have shot up maybe 180%.
Yeah.
While for the bottom 90%, it's closer to, 40-something%. And wealth concentration is even starker. You got, I think the number is around 735 billionaires now.
Yeah.
Their combined wealth is more than the entire bottom half of all U.S. households.
Yeah.
That's quite a gap.
And the national debt? France was crippled by debt. How does ours compare as a potential stress point?
It's a major concern, no doubt. The U.S. debt hit, $35.5 trillion this year?
Yeah, staggering.
And the interest payments alone, they've nearly doubled in 5 years. They actually cost more than the entire defense budget now. It's a different kind of system, different scale, but that kind of fiscal pressure, it does feel like an echo, a long-term vulnerability.
And politically, that feeling of division, mistrust, it feels pretty intense right now.
It really does. Polarization is measurable.
Yeah.
The number of people identifying as politically moderate has dropped quite a bit since the 90s.
Fewer people in the middle.
Fewer people in the middle. And public trust. That's taken a big hit. Back in the 70s, almost half of Americans felt most people can be trusted. Now, it's closer to a third. Some people call it an epidemic of mistrust.
Then there's the whole information landscape, totally different from 18th century pamphlets.
Oh, completely different. Social media allows for incredibly rapid mobilization. We saw that with the George Floyd protests. Millions participated. The women's marches, too.
Huge numbers.
But there's the other side. The algorithms can create echo chambers, amplify division, spread misinformation, or what some researchers call outgroup hate. Incredibly quickly. It cuts both ways.
So when you pull back and look at both periods, France then, America now, What's the real common thread connecting them? Is it that feeling of unfairness, of not being heard?
I think that's a huge part of it, yes. In both cases, you have these underlying grievances, economic hardship, political exclusion, or polarization getting amplified. But, and this is crucial, the contexts are vastly different. France was an absolute monarchy, a rigid, hereditary class system. The U.S. is a democratic republic. We have constitutions, elections, checks and balances, formal ways to address grievances that just didn't exist in the same way then.
And the information difference you mentioned.
Right. 18th century censorship versus today's just sheer volume and speed of information shaped by algorithms. It means how things play out, the pathways for change or conflict are fundamentally different.
So our deep dive shows these really compelling parallels, the economic gaps, the political divides, the trust deficit, this double-edged sword of information. It seems the amplification of grievance is key, regardless of the era's technology.
I think that's right. It's a potent reminder, this history. Unchecked inequality, a breakdown in trust, they can create fertile ground for unrest. The big question it raises maybe is, while American democracy has these formal channels, these institutions, how effective are they if the collective belief in them, the commitment to using them, starts to erode?
That is the question. So for you, listening, what stands out most for you in these echoes between centuries? And maybe what does it make you think about ensuring our own systems, our own democracy stays resilient today?